Hey everybody, this is Jekar again with another battle report. This is a 2,500 point game. It is one of the narrative scenarios from the back of the Warhammer 8th edition rulebook, the Dark Monoliths of Zul Magalugala, and it is against Skaven this time. When I say Skaven, I actually mean it, and not Wood Elves. Going over deployment from left to right, first we've got 5 Naked Wolf Riders, a Pump Wagon because I had 45 points extra, the Arachnarok Spider Boron, and a Spear Chucker in the very back there. After that, we've got 20 Night Goblin Archers with 2 Fanatics and a Standard. Next to them is 30 Orc Arboys, 10 wide. They have a Standard. There's another Spear Chucker back behind there. 20 more Night Goblins that are Archers that have 2 Fanatics, and those are carrying my BSB. You can see that slightly bigger Standard there. He's kind of hanging out to help out. And then next to them is a Rock Lava. Next to them is 40 Black Orcs. The guy in the front that doesn't look like a Black Orc is my Orc level 4 Shaman. He's my general. Behind them is another Rock Lava that looks mysteriously like the flinger part of a scrap launcher. I wonder why that is. And off right next to there you can see another 20 Night Goblins. Those also are Archers and have 2 Fanatics. Alright, off to the side that you can't see in front of the Night Goblins at the back is another unit of Night Goblins, also 20 strong, also with 2 Fanatics, also with a banner. Up front here is a unit of 30 Orc Arboys. They're going to go into that building, which is why they're right up front. Behind them, 2 Boar Chariots and 1 Goblin Chariot. And finally, right over here on the right flank, we have 5 more Naked Wolf Riders, don't be fooled by that Standard, and the last Goblin Wolf Chariot. Alright, over here on the very left for my opponent is a unit of 25 slaves. That's a building right next to them. On the other side of that building, we've got a Grey Group, which is 25 Clan Rats with a Warp Fire Thrower. They got a Standard. And up front is a Plague Priest. That guy has Wither and another spell, Vermintide, I want to say. Behind them is the Hell Pit Abomination. Next to them is a huge bus of 65 slaves and a Plague Claw Catapult. I think that's what it's called. We call it the Ratapult mostly. Next to the giant bus, we've got 40 Storm Vermin. There are 2 chieftains in there, both with halberds. The Storm Vermin are accompanied by a Doomflayer. Behind them is some giant rats with Packmasters. In that unit, kind of foolishly, as we'll see a little bit later, are his general, which is a warlord, his BSB, who is the what's his name? Squeal. Anyway, one of the special characters has been modded to be holding the banner, and his other level 2 Plague Priest, this one has Plague and Bless with Filth. Up next we've got 35 rats in red group, clan rats. They're with a warlord on a war litter. He's not the general, he's just there to add some punch. They've got a warp fire thrower. Behind them is a warp lightning cannon. And off to the front of the picture here, we've got 25 more slaves. And here's a picture of the terrain at the middle of the board. This is the Dark Monolith. The goal of this scenario is to control it. Now it acts as Arcane Ruins, which means anybody within 6 inches gets to channel 4 times. If they roll 3 6s, they have to roll on the miscast table, which is kind of sucky. But for this scenario, anybody within any wizard within 12 inches has a 3+ ward save, adds an extra power dice in the magic phase, and if they are also in the unit that controls the Dark Monolith, they're allowed to cast the Dark Whirlwind of Death spell, which does a lot of really crazy things, but then you have to pass a leadership test or roll on another chart, which can possibly kill you or, cause other bad things to happen. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. Nobody casts Dark Whirlwind of Death. It's powerful. It's like a template that moves, that scatters around. You can put it down anywhere you want. Everybody touched has to make a initiative test, I want to say, or they fly away. Wizards are like auto-killed if they're touched by it, but nobody wanted to risk their wizards to cast it, because after you cast it you have to make a successful leadership test. So sorry guys, you don't get to see any Dark Whirlwinds. That's our fault. I really forgot about the spell, and my opponent, I mean, Skaven magic is pretty brutal anyway. He didn't really need the help, so that's that. Alright, this picture I think is after he has done his moving on turn 1, but I just wanted to use it to show that I had forgotten something very crucial, which was to vanguard my wolves. And the reason that was crucial was because I wanted to get up and start blocking firing lanes so that he couldn't see to shoot into the inevitable slave combat. He positioned the slaves really well. I didn't want them being, sticking into the Black Orcs and then him being able to fire everything he's got at it. I wanted to stop the things from firing, and I forgot to vanguard because I'm a little foolish. And he took his first turn, at least the movement phase of his first turn, and he said, haha, you didn't vanguard, and I just kind of face palmed a little bit because I knew that that was a bad idea. This is pretty much the only turn, or the only picture we have from turn 1. Not much happened. We moved up a little bit. My opponent wheeled the bus to be able to get into the Black Orcs like I didn't want him to. The slaves move up to the river. Pretty much everything stalks forward. Nothing really happens in his magic phase. In his shooting phase, he kills a couple archer boys that are trying to get into the building. And he actually fires the Doom Rocket, and it overshoots a little bit, but it still kills 7 Black Orcs. But thankfully, it misses my level 4 General, which is nice. In my turn, everything moves up a little bit. I don't have any animosity. He dispels my Foot of Gork, and I fail to cast the powered up hand, or vice versa, something like that. In my shooting phase, I kill a couple rats from the bunker, and he passed his lookout, sir. Now later we'll learn that that's actually not supposed to happen. The bunker is comprised of war beasts, and so really, since there was only 5 infantry models, the 2 pack masters and the 3 characters, they shouldn't have had a lookout, sir. But at this point, we still thought they were getting him. The Doom Diver misses. My chuckers misfire, and that's kind of annoying. I shoot at the Warp Fire Thrower over on the right-hand side, and it passes all of its saves. And I do the same over here on the left-hand side, the ones by Grey Group, and it does the same thing. It passes a bunch of saves too. And so I plink. Ultimately, I've killed a couple giant rats and a couple clan rats this phase, and I was really just hoping for this to be a brutal shooting phase, because if you haven't guessed, this is kind of like an orc archery list I was giving it a try, and so far it's letting me down. Alright, here on Skaven turn 2, the slaves charge, and they find out that that is a normal river. They charge my wolves. I'm not too worried about that. They're not steadfast. I'm thinking they've got a couple attacks, I've got a couple attacks. Whoever rolls better is really going to win. And I think I have the one up because my wolves are actually weapon skill 3, which I never thought I would say. The A-bomb comes over this way as well. Pretty much everything moves up, and the other slaves on the other side, the big bus, take dangerous terrain test. The little glassy water around the dark monolith is, we consider it dangerous terrain, and the engineer takes a wound, and a couple of slaves die because of that. In magic, he withers the R boys because he's within 12 inches, and I'm kind of okay with that. I really let it go. The archer boys are not there to win the fight on their own. Boron's over there. We've got fanatics over there. They're going to do that fight with help. But I do dispel plague because, let's be honest, that spell is kind of a beast. In his shooting, his Ratapult hit 16 of the withered R boys, but it really only kills 4 who pass their panic test. 3 more Black Orcs die from the Warp Lightning Cannon, but that's that. In combat, the slaves fluff their attacks, and the wolves kill 2. So the wolves, of course, win by 1 because the slaves charged, but are in a river, so they don't have, rank bonus. They're not steadfast, so they explode, but the explosion doesn't kill anything. Alright, so in my turn 2, I don't have any animosity. These night goblins here, since they're in the flank of the slaves, go ahead and charge, and that's because I'm trying to hold them there. Go ahead and pin them because my Black Orcs failed to charge. They were supposed to be a pincer attack and really, F the slaves. But as it stands, the Night Goblins have to weather a couple rounds of combat, which is okay, because they also manage to, during their charge, unleash Fanatics. The Fanatics go through the Storm Vermin and kill 8. They go through the Giant Rats and kill 5 of the Giant Rats and all of the Pack Masters. And so that's just really, really brutal. And this is just a picture of kind of a sneaky charge that happened. One of my Goblin Chariots snuck through his lines and managed to hit the Doomflayer, which is going to be great because right behind the Doomflayer is a Warp Fire Thrower. And if you'll remember, I was really worried about the weapon teams in this game. I was worried about that big bus of slaves. And here I am, I'm taking out 2 of them right now. And then the Chariot's going to be in the backfield and really just in a prime position to keep taking out weapon teams or war machines. And that's what I want. Alright, so my magic phase is pretty eventful. First I cast Foot. And remember I said that we learned later that they don't get a reroll. Excuse me, not a reroll. A Lookout Sir in the rats because the rats are war beasts. Well, this is the phase that we found that out. I threw the Foot down, I hit the whole front rank, and it scattered a little bit, so it was only hitting the BSB, and I realized, wait a second, those are war beasts. So he didn't get a Lookout Sir. I did D3 wounds and killed him. Killed a couple rats too. That's not really that big of a deal, but I'm glad to have killed the BSB. That is a big deal. And then I also cast the powered up Hand of Gork, and I threw my Black Orcs into the flank behind the Storm Vermin and into the flank of the General's unit, really just so I could start disrupting things. This is, like I said, this is my only combat unit. I need to get this in and get this in good positions, and I think this is a great position behind his lines and behind his biggest combat threat. So in my shooting phase, the Orcs on my left flank kill 5 clan rats, and the goblins over there manage to snipe off the Warp Fire Thrower, which is nice. Now this flank is looking like it's going to be okay. I've got lots of Fanatics. I've got the Arachnarok, and they've got a depleted clan rat unit and a Hell Pit, and so things are looking good there. Over on the right flank, I killed 2 of the red group from my Orcs in the tower. My first my first rock lobber misfires and can't fire for 2 turns. My second rock lobber scatters off, and my Doom Diver explodes. So, woo! Shooting is going about average, I think, for Orc shooting. Alright, so in combat, you can see that predictably the Chariot has destroyed the Grinder and has overrun into the Warp Fire Thrower. This is really good. That means I'm going to fight that fight on his turn, and my Chariot will be able to reform or overrun or whatever I need it to do, and it'll be good to go in my turn again, which is very, very sexy. And then the slave combat, I win combat, but you can see from this picture after combat that the slaves have held. This was actually one I was looking really, really forward to with the BSB dead and with them not having a rank bonus. They were only steadfast on their general's leadership of 7, which is actually easy to fail. It's a 50-50 shot. So I was actually really looking forward to my 120 points of Night Goblins, who had already severely depleted the bunker and killed a bunch of Storm Vermin, to also breaking the slaves. That just would have made my day, but it didn't happen. So my opponent's turn 3 starts off really well for me, which is always sad. His gutter runners come on. You see where they come on. They're trying to shoot at my war machines, my BSB's unit, do some general harassment. My BSB's unit, as you know, has 2 Fanatics. They throw them through the gutter runners. I kill 4. The gutter runners then panic right back off, which is great for me. I'm feeling good, and my opponent is pretty pissed that that unit, 170 points, did absolutely nothing. It took 50 points of Fanatics to the face. And in his movement phase, my opponent charges red group with the Warlord into my archers in the building, and so that's not going to go very well for me. And then he charges his general's bunker into the side of my Night Goblins, which is also not going to go very well for me. It'll give me a chance to try and whittle that unit down some more, but if they hadn't done that, my Night Goblins would have probably won combat again. But anyway, that's not important.